I would like to prove once and for all that voting doesn't matter and we can't vote our way out of this problem anyway. Census Bureau means tested government benefit recipients outnumber full-time year-round workers. Now, this is the total number of all federal employees. It comes out to be 21,880,000, or about 21.8 million people. I'm going to round these numbers so they're easier to read. There were 108 million people in the United States in the fourth quarter of 2011 who were recipients of one or more means-tested government benefit programs, the Census Bureau said in data released this week. Meanwhile, according to the Census Bureau, there were 101 million people who worked full-time year-round in 2011. That included both private sector and government workers. So now let's go ahead and subtract the 21.8 million federal workers from the full-time worker count, and that comes out to you being outvoted by 36%, which means that none of the people getting means-tested government benefits will ever vote to reduce them, nor vote for any politician that will reduce them. And I just saw in the Drudge Report this morning that the food stamps have more than doubled in the last decade, so you can't vote your way out of this problem. It doesn't matter who you vote in there because the math is showing you straight up in black and white that we're screwed. I mean, for lack of a better phrase, there's nothing, we're screwed. There's no money. More and more people get on these food stamps. And voting ain't going to change math in any way, shape, or form, no matter how many people want to hope and that it's going to. You just can't change math with hope. So for any election, doesn't matter because we're screwed. And we're just waiting on that one day when they finally pull the pin on this whole thing. And you're just going to have to crash the old system to bring in the new one. And anyway, and I'm sure by now, by the way, just for a fun little side note to show how who cares, the system is broken anyway. I'm sure by now you've heard that Obama has been ousted, that he did know that whenever Obamacare was implemented that the majority of people would not be able to keep their current programs. And he came out time and time again and said, this is what he said, if you like what you have, you can keep it. Well, guess what? Turns out that that's a lie, and he knew that that was a lie. Four sources deeply involved in the Affordable Care Act tell NBC News that 50 to 70% of the 14 million consumers who buy their insurance individually can expect to receive a cancellation letter or the equivalent over the next year because their existing policies don't meet the standards mandated by the new healthcare law. One expert predicts that number could reach as high as 80%, and all say that many of those forced to buy pricier new policies will experience sticker shock. None of this should come as a shock to the Obama administration. The law states that policies in effective March 23, 2010 will be grandfathered, meaning consumers can keep their policies even though they don't meet requirements of the new healthcare law. But the Department of Health and Human Services then wrote regulations that narrowed that provision by saying that if any part of a policy was significantly changed since that date, the deductible, copay, or benefits, for example, the policy would not be grandfathered. In other words, the administration intentionally wrote regulations that they knew would force the cancellation of these policies under their law in 2010. That dude came out so many times and said, if you like what you have, you can keep it. Unbelievable. And you know what's funny? Is the president before him, he was a Republican. You know what he said? There were weapons of mass destruction. That turned out to be a lie. And let's just for fun go back to the president before that guy who happened to just be a Democrat. And you know what he said? He said his little wiener was nowhere near Monica Lewinsky. That turned out to be a lie. So it really is kind of funny how whether Republican or Democrat, they're all liars. And I really don't understand why people defend this system. They pretend that voting matters, that they have a say in stuff, and that it works. You are the biggest, oh my goodness, they're under the biggest illusion of your lifetime. I mean, it is unreal. And this whole, you can't even defend that system. Now it's morally bankrupt, as this guy who wrote this article even said. I'm 32 years old, and over the last 32 years, you know what's happened? My dollar has been devalued. Everything I need has inflated. I have lost more freedoms than I can even count. More wars have started. I'm less and less safe. I'm getting every aspect of my life spied on. How could anyone defend this system? But people do. And then they want to say, oh, we'll vote somebody in there that's going to fix anything. The math says you can't. But that's right. That's why this whole system, it's like, let it crash to bring in the new one because that's the only thing we can do now. Now, I just want to go ahead and show, someone sent this to me. The dude seemed pretty legit, seemed pretty genuine. He's starting a new website. It's got a bunch of good information on it. It looks a whole lot like, and people who've been watching my stuff know that I'm a big fan of Jason Up 4. It looks a lot like what Realist News used to be like. This site pretty much sucks now because it's infiltrated by a bunch of trolls, but that's not Joe's fault. There's nothing he can do about that. But this looks like an older Realist News, so this is probably going to be really. There's a lot of great information on here. So if you're interested, I'll put the link below. I just told the guys to support the site because it looks like it's going to be great, and it's turning out great so far. So I just wanted to show everybody that. Links to all this stuff will be below. So tell your friends and family. Can't vote your way out of this one. Doesn't work. Sorry, math says so. Thanks to anybody who does go to my band's Facebook page and likes us. Thanks to anybody who has clicked like. Appreciate it. To those of you who don't know, trying to wake people up through music as well as videos. So thanks to everybody for supporting the band. Thanks for everybody for supporting my channel. Thank you to my teammates. Thank you to my subs as always. See you all in the next video. Have a good one.